The Michigan Wolverines and the Wisconsin Badgers, two programs seemingly moving in opposite directions in the Big Ten right now. But we're bringing on an extra special guest, one of my favorites, back to the program to break it all down. Michigan Wolverines expert Kellen Voss on Talking Badgers. It is Talking Badgers, powered by BadgerNotes.com. I'm your host, Kedrick Stumbris. You can find me on the website formerly known as Twitter, all the various social medias at Kedrick Stumbris. Follow the podcast at Talking Badgers, youtube.com/at Talking Badgers. And that's what we are talking today. Badgers, Wolverines, two mustelids in the Big Ten. And a program that is kind of intertwined by its quarterbacks, Bryce Underwood, Carter Smith, two guys that are going to be tied to the hip a little bit here for the next couple of years. And also tied to the hip in terms of run defense, run offense. And I'm going to bring in my favorite guy. It's Kellen Voss of Maize n Brew to talk about it, to chop it up, give you all the greatest, latest information on the Michigan Wolverines football team. It's, all right, my lighting just burnt out on me. So that's what we got going. And we bring back into the program as we fight through a lighting situation in this hotel room. It is one Kellen Voss. Kellen, it's really good to see you, man.
Thanks, Kedrick. It's great to have me. I respect the lighting setup because it's not very often that I'm not the most pale person on a podcast. So the lighting is really helping you out there. But it's great to be back. I love chopping it up with you whenever Wisconsin and Michigan to get together. Usually it's about basketball, but this week they play in football. So
yeah, I went back through the archives and realized we hadn't done this with the football teams to date. So I'm very interested in doing it. And the last time we talked, we were talking about Michigan, Wisconsin, the one time they played last year in basketball. And we spoke a little bit about how the Wisconsin football and Michigan football teams were doing at that time. And you had said, Michigan was also having a little bit of a disappointing year, kind of like Wisconsin. Well, I don't think we can really say the same thing right now. I think they are decidedly moving in different directions. But Kellen, it's still a little bit of an interesting year, still shaking out a little bit of the wrinkles from the Harbaugh era, as this is Sharon Moore's first game back from his second of third suspension. Now are we going?
Yeah. So it's a self-imposed 2-game suspension that the school put on him for his role in the Connor Stallion scandal, and then he will be suspended again next year when they go to Germany to play Western Michigan. But that will be the end of his suspensions for the Connor Stallions thing. But he is back on the sideline now.
Is there anything to just like him being back in the fold here?
Not really. I mean, people were excited about Biff Poggi. Obviously, he's a great character in college football. He's a legendary coach. But Biff reiterated to the media constantly in his 2 weeks as tenure that, hey, I'm just doing what Sharon Moore tells me to do. Like it was always the plan to unleash Bryce and stuff throughout this time period. This isn't me going rogue or anything. This is just strictly what Sharon Moore wants to do. So I really think that there's a connectivity between the staff here, and I don't think there's going to be much of a change. I mean, I'm sure the guys are happy to have him back, but I don't think there's going to be much of a difference in terms of what they want to do on the football field.
Understandable. And there's a lot of new faces, though, right? It's quarterback Bryce Underwood. It's a new offensive coordinator, and of course, as always, the lovely exchange between the Harbaugh brothers, Ravens, Michigan, Chargers, and Wink Martindale on the defensive coordinator role as it goes. But let's start on the offense. This is kind of an interesting little tie between Wisconsin and Michigan here. Bryce Underwood, of course, starting quarterback who comes in as Carter Smith sees the writing on the wall, and he ends up at Wisconsin, and that's going to take a little bit longer to pan out, of course. But Bryce Underwood seemingly taking the reins as the guy in charge on campus from the first day he got there. But what is it that's been so impressive about him so far through four games of play?
So whenever someone asks me about this, I think of an anecdote that my dad texted me during the first Michigan game when they were playing New Mexico. They ended up beating New Mexico pretty handily. My dad is in his mid-50s. He's watched pretty much every single Michigan football and Lions football game of the past, I'd say 45 years or so. And he said that I've never seen a quarterback throw with a zip on their passes like Bryce Underwood does. And that rings true when you watch him play. I mean, I was worried coming in that there was a little too much hype with the Vince Young comparisons and everything, but I mean, the guy is as advertised. Like, he's super accurate. He can throw the ball downfield. It's not a check down situation. It's not let's ease him into the situation. Like, the training wheels appear to be off the last few weeks, and he is just really impressive. What's super impressive to me about him is how he's able to throw on the run and how he's able to manipulate his body and get into the right position and stuff and get out of pressure and get out of that way. And the first 2 weeks, he was kind of limited in the run game. It almost felt like that was intentional to get him to get used to the offense and stuff. At least that's what it seemed like from an outside perspective. But now that he's able to run and stuff, it just adds a whole other layer to Michigan's game. I mean, OptaStats had a whole thing where like his big touchdown run against Nebraska was like the fifth fastest anybody in college football had run. And so to be able to get that from the quarterback position, but also have him be a dynamic thrower who can throw in the pocket, can throw out of the pocket, can throw out of structure, can throw within structure, can hit crossing routes, can hit deep routes, can hit the intermediate throws. Like, he is as advertised. And I am just thrilled that Michigan's quarterback situation was as bleak gets last year. Just to go from that to this feels like an incredible shift in terms of what the program can actually accomplish underneath him.
His legs are what makes it really interesting to me. And he's rushing for over 7 yards per attempt, which, like, in college football is crazy because those sack yardages sack yardages counted against your rushing stats. And so I think it is something to both the credit of the offensive line, of course, of keeping him upright. And we'll get to the offensive line in a little bit of a minute here, but also to him for he just rips off these big runs, right? And what is it that is more impressive to you if you had to pick one? Is it legs or the arm that makes it the bigger threat?
I think it's the throwing that's the bigger threat, because there's tons of guys in college football that are excellent runners. I mean, there's tons of programs across the country that have, 2-3 guys, and one of them is like the designated runner, right? And one of them can play out of structure and be that guy. But with Bryce, it's like the running's almost secondary to how good of a passer he is. I mean, the zip that he has in his throws, the accuracy that he has in his throws, he really, he's never looked daunted. He's never looked like the moment's too big for him at all. He's just been incredibly accurate and incredibly impressive as a thrower. And to me, we talk about the concept of freshmen, getting used to the speed of college sports before. It's a big conversation in basketball, as both of you and I know. But with him, it's just seamless right away. Like, he's already, I'd say, a top 5 quarterback in the Big Ten, and I feel comfortable saying that. Like, he is incredible in terms of what he's able to do with the ball, in terms of how he can hit every area of the field. He's really big. Like, he's built like a linebacker. So every time that a guy tries to get at him, they just bounce off him. It's almost Cam Newton-esque, I would say. So I'd say the throwing, I think that the running obviously brings a whole nother layer to it, especially with football going more towards running quarterbacks in general. But I think people still underrate him as a passer, because it's just incredible to watch every week.
Is there anything about him in particular that's been underwhelming so far?
I don't know. I mean, in the Central game, he had a pick where it's like there's certain coverages that he has where he's trying to out muscle a ball and beat the ball over the top. That's very nitpicky in terms of that stuff. Like, in terms of everything like that, there really hasn't been a standout moment where it's like, oh, this guy's in over his skis, or oh, this guy doesn't really have it. Like, he is as advertised as a passer. And I'm worried about sounding too optimistic right now talking about him, but it's just he's just been that incredible. He's lived up to every single bit of hype that has come his way this season.
Well, I mean, and that's a lot of hype to begin with.
No, it is, and that comes with the NIL price tag, that comes with the Larry Ellison thing, that comes with the whole saga with LSU and Michigan with that whole thing. But I mean, he played at Belleville, which is less than an hour from Ann Arbor. So to be getting that hometown kid and seeing all these receiving recruits joining essentially because of Bryce Underwood is something that Michigan hasn't had in a really long time.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned all those details, and it's all stuff that I knew in the back of my head. The LSU, the NIL phone call of it all, and
Larry Ellison dating a girl who went to Michigan, so he's been contributing more NIL money to Michigan, and now he happens to be the richest man in the entire world. So that's a whole nother element of it. But yeah,
it's almost. I mean, and I knew all these things, but it's almost like it's a quintessentially college football story, but almost because, and I wonder if it's just because he's at Michigan, it just kind of feels like it's on the back burner. Where if he had stayed at LSU and put a vacuum, you swap Larry Ellison out for another name or something like that, and you keep all those details the same. I feel like nationally we'd be having this conversation about Bryce Underwood all the time every week, and it does feel maybe just a little bit muted because Michigan of it all.
I guess in a way, because like the team is a little bit worse than the
right.
upper echelon of the Big Ten.
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm getting
reason for it. Like, because you see with Dave Portnoy now on the Fox pregame show all the time, like he's always hyping up Michigan. Like it's always whenever people talk about like there's this insane crop of freshman quarterbacks that he's a part of that he headlines, I would say, and he's always brought up in that conversation. But to me, nationally, I think there's been more discussion about Penn State, Oregon, and Ohio State because they're the top of the top of the Big Ten. And then Michigan's probably in that class right underneath them at this point. Do I think that on a neutral site they could beat each one of those teams 2 or 3 times out of 10? Sure. But I think most of the time, all those teams would beat Michigan right now.
Yeah. Well, let's stay focused on this game before we widen the aperture all too much. But the ground game. This game is a fascinating, just in the trenches matchup up front between two both good rushing defenses by the numbers, total yardage and yards per carry given up, but also a Wisconsin offense that has certainly struggled on the ground and a Michigan offense that has not struggled on the ground at all. What has made Michigan's rushing attack so potent? Is it Justice Haynes? Is it Bryce Underwood? Is it the relatively young offensive line stepping up to the task here? What has pieced this all together into being? What is it? Are they number 1 in the country in yards per carry right now? Still?
Yeah, it's right around there, and most of the stats and the advanced stats back that up too. I think the stat that I saw, I wrote a game preview today. The stat that I saw is that they lead the country in 50-yard runs and like explosive rate in that standpoint. And that's something that has been seen on tape, right? Like there have been jokes online from MSU fans that they've been big run merchants because a lot of their offense in some of these games has come from a 70-yard run from Justice Haynes, an 80-yard run from Justice Haynes. And I think that a number of things go into that. Justice Haynes is one of the fastest players in all of college football. He's an incredible dude. I got to talk to him in July at a golf event that Michigan had, and he is just the nicest young man, very, very family-oriented. And just a great human being. And he just flies in the open field. And there have been really good holes for him. And to me, that's part of the credits that goes to the young offensive line. Evan Link, Gio Hadi, who's now hurt, but was good before he got hurt. Greg Crippen, all those guys have been opening up holes and playing really like opening up stuff for him. And also Chip Lindsey, I think, has been scheming stuff up. I mean, Kirk Campbell, by all accounts, was a great human being, and he was a amazing recruiter, but he could not scheme up runs to save his life. And now Chip Lindsey comes in with this whole new mindset of how to go about it and how to open up the stuff for Justice Haynes and everything. The other thing is Haynes keeps talking about the 1-2 punch that they have with him and Jordan Marshall. Jordan Marshall's the sophomore that's a little more of a power back. He had 100 yards against Bama in the bowl game last year. And so when they bring him in, it's a little bit more of a different element. But Haynes, it's just speed all day long. He is incredibly fast in the open space. He's the kind of runner where it's just like one cut and go and just ready to go. He's like, every dad probably loves watching him run because he doesn't like dance around in the backfield or anything. He's just moving forward every single time. And I think that plays a role in the big chunk plays and stuff. And obviously now you add Bryce's legs to all of it. Like it adds a whole other element of success to what Michigan's been doing.
Is there something to be said for this offensive line is kind of interesting, and you have center who's been there for a very long time, graduate student, and then it's true sophomores, true juniors. Where have they excelled, and where in other places have they maybe struggled so far this year?
I think that the run blocking has been really, really good. I think that it's been consistently good. I think that holes have opened up there. Pass pro, I think, could use a little bit of work. Oklahoma was able to get them along the edges a lot Both the tackles, like they're really good run blockers, but I think there's room for improvement in the pass protection with both those guys. But in terms of it, like Michigan's whole identity throughout the years where they were going, CFP, and the national championship, their whole identity was the run game and the offensive line. And when Sharon Moore was the offensive line coach, like he had those guys as the best unit in the country. They won the Joe Moore Award back-to-back years. Like that was their identity. And last year they kind of went away from that just with how mediocre everything was on offense. Mediocre is probably even a polite term for it. But and now that you have Chip Lindsey in place, a competent offensive coordinator, you have a young offensive line that has a year now under their belt that has stepped up to the plate big time. And I think it helps that you have two really good running backs in Haynes and Marshall. And it's definitely helped Bryce Underwood to an extent because it's something that he doesn't have to worry about. He's not coming into a lot of 2nd and 9s, a lot of 3rd and 10s. Like it's a lot of short yardage plays, setting him up in great situations.
Yeah, when you say that the tackles have maybe struggled a little bit in pass pro, that's interesting. That's something I noticed right away.
Yeah,
Wisconsin's got a couple of edges who can kind of get after you. Yeah, Mason Reiger is really good, transfer in from Louisville, who can kind of get after you at times. They even have some of these interior linebackers who are really good pass rushers, like Christian Allegro, for example, who maybe can get after you on some stuff schemed up, but they've relied on him to play a bit of a spy role against some of these other mobile quarterbacks, like they played Daquan Finn against Miami in week 1. So that matchup is fascinating to me and how they handle all of that.
And if Wisconsin can create pressure in that spot, that's going to make the game close, right?
Yeah.
Like that's going to be the one thing that Wisconsin's going to have to hang their hat on in order to keep this. I mean, the spread's up to 17.5 now, 16.5, something like that.
Sure. I think it was 17.5 to open the week.
Yeah, right? It was 16 for a long time, and then I think it's moved up to 17 with Michigan money going into it. But
I mean, that's if you've bet some money on the Wisconsin Badgers the last handful of years, you've made some money in return. So, or against the Wisconsin Badgers. I mean, on the opposite side of the ball, Michigan defense also been very stout against the run, allowing 2.4 yards per rush. I think that's 6th or 7th in the country when I checked yesterday.
Yeah, they've been good.
Yeah, who are the standouts up front on the front 7 there that have really helped in that?
Rayshon Benny has kind of been he was the next go-to in a line of defensive tackles. He didn't get a lot of playing time the last few years because of the Mason Grahams and Kenneth Grant. I mean, two guys that went in the top 15 in the NFL draft were ahead of him on the depth chart. But he's been really good so far this year. Derek Moore has been incredible off the edge. Ernest Hausman, who was their middle linebacker that they've now basically converted into an edge defender, he's been probably their best source of pressure. He was wreaking havoc in the Nebraska game. Dylan Raiola didn't have time to take 3 or 4 steps before he had pressure to deal with in that capacity. TJ Guy has also been really good. He had an interception in the New Mexico game. He's been given a little less consistency in the pass rush, but he's still been given that pass rush to you. And Michigan's identity on the other side of the line, similar to the offense, is like, we're going to beat you up front. It's a Wink Martindale defense that's kind of got Baltimore Ravens roots into it. I mean, he kind of built that whole fly safety, Jabril Peppers, kind of situation with all the animals up front. And a lot of times they send pressure, but a lot of times it's just the 3 or 4 guys up front, and they're able to get pressure off of that. I mean, that's the biggest reason why they won the Nebraska game. They sacked Nebraska 7 times and were able to wreak havoc on that side of the field and to use the big chunk plays to their advantage on offense. So that's been Michigan's calling card all year. They weren't able to generate pressure in the one game they've lost this year, and that's Oklahoma. Granted, Oklahoma might be one of the best teams in the country, but I think that it's probably been their biggest strength on defense is creating pressure.
Well, that's 7 times they sacked Nebraska. Wisconsin gave up 6 sacks against Maryland the last time they went out there. So I think that's certainly something to watch for in this upcoming matchup.
Yeah, that's something I was going to ask you about because, I know the Wisconsin offensive line hasn't been great, but I guess. What's the reason for it being as bad as it's been, I guess?
How much time do we have? So it's been a confluence of events. So they started in camp in spring
Yeah.
with kicking out a sophomore to left tackle, Kevin Haywood, very highly touted recruit, who was going to be like the heir apparent at that position and had all the reason to do so. And then he tore his ACL in the spring.
Okay.
Since then, everything has kind of waterfalled down from there. Where they went to the portal in the spring window to find a left tackle, right? Very difficult, right? Very difficult to do. They end up settling for Davis Heinzen out of Central Michigan. Is not a Big Ten caliber starting left tackle, and he got burnt pretty badly in week 1 against Miami of Ohio. It was Adam Trick was their edge, who I think was a sophomore or a redshirt sophomore, who basically got half of his pressure numbers from the prior season in week 1 against Wisconsin. Against Davis Heinzen, just over and over again. It was not a spectacular outing for Davis Heinzen.
And I'm assuming Alabama was also a sticking point as well.
Well, so then when they moved forward, right, then they took Riley Mallman, who has been the program's starting right tackle for 3 seasons, and said, hey, can you play on the left? Pretty please, basically was what happened. The offensive line coach showed up at his apartment, brought him cookies with his wife, and it's like, hey, we need you to switch over to the other side.
And then I think of the Lane Johnson quote where it's like asking to be switched to the other side of the line is asking to wipe your ass with your other hand. It's just you think it's an easy thing, but then as you work the mechanics of it, it's just like it's just hard to swallow.
Yeah, so that's been difficult. So they have a redshirt sophomore playing at right tackle in Emerson Mandel, who has struggled. They bring in a redshirt sophomore to play right guard as well, which has been hard. And they've been dealing with a banged up center too in Jake Renfro, who has been in and out of the lineup and seemingly is the only guy on the roster who can snap the ball effectively. Like they have had problems with illegal snaps and several snaps that turn into fumbles, snaps going over quarterbacks' heads and going over running backs' heads on direct snaps to running backs between 2 different backup centers, the second of which also being a sophomore because they tried bringing in the graduate student Kerry Kadonko to play backup center, and that's been a failure. So and then the left guard, who's a veteran guy, hasn't been as good as they thought it was. So they've had problems at literally every offensive line position.
Wow.
So that's why there's
I feel for you on the torn ACL thing because there was Michigan has a 5-star freshman. He's a guy you're gonna want to remember the next few years. His name's Andrew Babalola. He actually played basketball growing up and then switched over to football junior year and was so good at it that they were like, oh, you're a 5-star in terms of the tools that he had, just as in terms of his height and his size and his frame and stuff. And I saw him at that same golf outing. He is the leanest 300-pound person I've ever seen. Like he passes for 240, but he's 300 pounds in terms of like how his body is built and where the muscles all are and stuff. And he tore his ACL like second week of camp-ish. And he was like in the running to be in that left tackle spot. Probably Evan Link was the guy that ended up taking it, but Evan Link has been really good. But yeah, Andrew Babalola, name you're going to want to remember in a couple of years here. He's probably going to be left tackle of the future, I would guess.
All right. Well, that's a good nugget. While we talk about the other side of the trenches for a second here, going back to it, Michigan's pass defense. You mentioned the pass rush. I mean, it's 14 sacks through 4 games, 7 against Nebraska last week, another 6 interceptions by 5 different players on this season. I mean, what is it? Is it the pass rush? Is it the secondary that's so effective here? Is it a little bit of both?
I think the pass rush has been more. Has been a little bit better in my opinion. The secondary hasn't been bad per se. I think that they're more prone to like boneheaded mistakes and everything. Brandon Hillman, for example, one of the starting safeties, he's an incredible run stopper, has made some really big plays this year, but he'll also get burnt over the top a lot of times. And there have been some miscommunications on defense that I think have played a part into that. I wouldn't say it's necessarily a bad unit. They're still waiting for Rod Moore to come back. He was the safety that picked off the pass in the Ohio State game 2 years ago. And then they won a championship with Rod Moore. And then he tore his ACL like that next offseason. And he's basically been trying to come back from it. And it's been a really, really long recovery period. He might make his debut in this game. They've been hinting at it for the last couple of weeks. But I don't know when he's going to actually play. But not having him has been a bit of a hindrance. But otherwise, they've been fine in the secondary. It's a similar thing that you mentioned, the offensive line, where it's a lot of young guys that have stepped up in a big way.
Anything notable on special teams here? I got a little hint of something that like Michigan fans are kind of dissatisfied with.
Yeah, it's been bad. It's been bad. They don't punt very well. They Andrew Marsh, the punt returner, my guys over on Out of the Blue, our podcast network, Block M, have been big on this. Like, he just made a couple boneheaded mistakes, and I think part of the reason why the spotlights has been so big on it has been there's so much to like on the offense and defense that the special teams is just less than ideal. And weirdly enough, it's been pretty bad ever since Jay Harbaugh left. He's now the special teams coach with the Seattle Seahawks, Jim's son. But he was a really good special teams coach, and it has just not been the same since. They had the Jake, whatever his name is, the guy who muffed the punt in the Rose Bowl game. Jake Moody was a solid kicker for a long, long time. And Dominic Zavada had been pretty good from distance, struggled a little bit to start this year, but is now picking it back up. But yeah, special teams, I'd say, has been the one weakness for Michigan. Like, they have been prone to mistakes in that area, and some worse teams have beat them in that area. But that's been the one area they've probably been outplayed in this year, I would say.
Okay, good note to have. Wisconsin has also struggled on special teams. Their punter is really good. That's well,
I mean, it's like the Bears. Like, the Bears need to have a good punter too, so it makes sense. 26 minutes without like twisting the knife a little bit, so I feel like I deserve some credit for the restraint in that standpoint.
But you had to do it with the Bears.
I don't know. I'm sorry. I mean, the Packers have been good, so I can't use the Packers, but
well, they've been good-ish.
Are you kidding? They blew the hell out of the Lions, and then we had to listen to national shows for a whole week saying, "Are the Packers the greatest football team that ever walked the earth?"
And then they lost to the Browns after having
the Browns and tied the Cowboys. Yeah,
it's been weird. Okay. If there is any recipe for a Wisconsin Badgers upset here, is it as simple as, Wisconsin ends up shutting down the Michigan run game and you force Bryce Underwood to win it through the air? Is there something else, and maybe he makes a boneheaded freshman mistake?
Yeah, I mean, it's not an easy recipe, but if you're able to get the big chunk plays out, and take their yards per carry down a little bit, force Bryce into some 3rd and 11s, 3rd and 12s, 3rd and 13s, force him to beat you in that standpoint, then maybe you could see him pressing a little bit, maybe throwing a pick over a certain coverage, that kind of a thing. I think it's just a matter of if your offensive line's able to hold up the other side of the ball, because to me, that's the biggest obstacle in the spread being as big as it is. Because let's say Michigan scores first drive of the game, Wisconsin struggles that next drive, gives up a sack or two, and then Michigan's right down the field right again. Like, at what point, what does that do to this team mentally is the thing. And I guess I was going to ask you that here. Like, we've been talking about on our Pick'em podcast I do with my site manager, Vaughn Lozon, that Wisconsin, it's unclear like what's going on. I mean, the air raid offense hasn't been successful per se, but Luke Fickle looked like the no-brainer of a hire going from taking Cincinnati to the college football playoff to now. But is it really as simple as it's just an offense that hasn't worked? Because it feels like there's something going on behind the scenes that's been brewing here for a while.
Well, so they fired Phil Longo midseason.
Right. Yeah.
And now, it's just this very jarring switch between you go from what Wisconsin was to we're going to go to the air raid to we are speaking from whatever, the Luke Fickle perspective, to Luke Fickle saying, okay, we need to go back to running the ball, being deliberate about it. And you bring in Jeff Grimes, who's very passionate about running a wide zone based offense, but he has some of that.
That can be hard to learn. Yeah.
It can be, but it's also just, we're going to go out. It's zone blocking. If you're the running back, you pick your hole and you go. And if you're on the offensive line, you push guys to a direction and you go.
Yeah.
And there is some with the Jeff Grimes that comes with he does get into the jet sweep stuff, and he does like to be a little bit tricky about it. And every once in a while you see these direct snaps to the running backs, and the offense has been a little bit touch and go.
Mhm.
I've mostly been like I think I've mostly seen encouraging signs from Jeff Grimes long term.
Yeah, right.
Maryland last week, he tried to be. They were having trouble just like continually moving the ball, and it felt like anytime they were getting some positive momentum, they would go back to some weird trick play and it would just
Mhm.
put a real disaster on it.
Yeah.
But also, this is the third year in a row they're going extended time without their starting quarterback. Billy Edwards, former quarterback for the
Yeah, he was
Terrapins,
solid at Maryland, honestly. I
and
liked him at
then
Maryland.
he suffered a non-contact injury in week 1 against Miami, and then he
He just
tried
hasn't been the
playing,
same.
and well, he was out for the rest of that game. He was out for the following 2 games, and he didn't even make it 2 full drives against Maryland, and I don't think he's going to play this week. Is my hunch, is my
Okay.
expectation.
Okay.
So they've been rolling with the true sophomore quarterback in Danny O'Neil, who started 11 games last year at San
Yeah.
Diego State, right? But they went 2-10 last year.
Okay. Yeah.
So it's been they haven't had their preferred starting quarterback, which I have my arguments for why I don't think it's a total excuse, but it's been that the defense has been better this year, but it certainly hasn't been to what they have expected it to be. It's just like you said, Luke Fickle, everybody expected it to work. No, just about nobody. And you could have asked questions about bringing in an air raid offense, and those questions would have been more than fair. But nothing's been working thus far. If you don't have your preferred starting quarterback and your offensive line is really beat up, it's hard to judge just how good things are supposed to be on the field. But that doesn't excuse the things that have happened the last 2.5 years.
Right. Yeah. I guess I'm wondering, because his name and Billy Napier's names are 2 names you hear all the time in terms of the hot seat and stuff when you hear national podcasts and whatnot. And I don't know how much of that is legit. I mean, I don't follow Wisconsin. I follow them whenever they're playing Michigan. I follow them over the course of the Big Ten, but it's I'm not entrenched in that team as Michigan would be. So I guess what would it take for him to earn that, to not have that seat get a little less warm? What kind of a season would you need to see in order to get the fan base to get their confidence restored a little bit? That might be your answer right there.
The problem with answering that is it is very hard to see the path forward right now. It's very hard to see what that looks like. They play Michigan this week, and then they play Iowa the week after, and then they play Ohio State the week after.
It's a brutal schedule.
And then they play Oregon the week after. Right? This October, before the season, everybody on this podcast network that I'm talking on now, we all picked them to go winless in October. And now I think they're worse than I expected them to be before the season started. So it's hard to say. It would start from winning a game like this, right? Where, and I'm not talking about this game in particular, but maybe it's against Iowa. Luke Fickle doesn't have a win over a ranked team in his time at Wisconsin.
Wow, really?
Luke Fickle has lost 9 of his last 14 games as the head coach of the Wisconsin Badgers. The person they fired before Luke Fickle arrived, he won nine of his last 14. So
didn't they fire him during halftime? They fired him during the third quarter of a Packers game to make sure people didn't talk about him or whatever. Right? That happened, right?
I don't know if that was the.
And I mean we don't know that for a fact, but the optics of it PR wise kind of seemed like they did it to bury it under the Packers.
That is about the time of day that it happened.
Yeah.
So they need to go back to beating their traditional rivals. Luke Fickle in public has been saying a lot of this isn't the Big Ten West anymore, which I think has landed the wrong way with a lot of people, because it doesn't matter if it's not the Big Ten West anymore. You aren't beating your Big Ten West opponents. I think they combined score in the game. They lost to Iowa 44-13 last year, right? They got blown out something like 120 some to 40 some. When you combine their games against Iowa, Nebraska, and Minnesota.
Iowa seems worse this year, if it gives you any
well, and Mark Gronowski being injured doesn't help that either.
Right.
So in terms of the season that it requires, they a win against Iowa would go a really long way. He hasn't beaten Iowa yet as the head coach of Wisconsin. Getting a win against Minnesota, I think, would go a really long way.
Yeah.
And I think you were probably banking on the path to a bowl, including a win against Washington at home, and that looks a lot harder now than maybe it did to start the season.
That's true. Yeah. I mean, that's a big one. The USC game next week is going to be a big one, but that would be another recipe for Wisconsin to do well, is if that's a look ahead spot. If they're saying, "Oh, we got that California trip with a USC team that is kind of in a similar spot to what we are in," and they completely ignore what Wisconsin has, and then all of a sudden Wisconsin's up 10-7 in the second quarter, and you're starting to freak out a little bit. That is something I could see, but I guess the recipe for Wisconsin to pull it off, it's hard to find it in terms of what Michigan's good at and what Wisconsin hasn't been good at.
Yeah, and I think your mind there, your take there on putting that into a microcosm of this game, it's just hard to see the path.
Yeah,
it's kind of how it seems a lot of Wisconsin Badgers fans are feeling about things long term right now.
Interesting.
Even when I can paint the rosiest picture being something like, maybe they aren't as bad as they've played through four games.
Yeah.
And you give some time for Billy Edwards to get healthy. Maybe the offensive line improves a little bit. You find a way to squeak out wins against Iowa, Illinois, Washington, Minnesota, get yourself to a bowl. I mean, even if you win 2 of those, 3 of those, you're probably in a better spot than you think you are right now. But even then, it becomes, how much faith do people have after that, after you miss 2 bowl games in a row for the first time in 30 years? So
I did want to ask you how the linebackers have been doing, because I actually covered Wisconsin's linebacker coach when I was in college. So I was wondering how that unit's been looking.
Oh yeah, you would have had a look at Matt Mitchell at Grand Valley State,
yeah.
Huh?
I have a great relationship with Matt Mitchell for the entire time I was there. But he's a great coach. So how the linebackers look?
I think the middle linebackers are one of the bright spots on the team. They have struggled a little bit in coverage, but they are very athletic. Christian Allegro is, a junior, and he's going to have 1 more year of eligibility, but has been really great so far. Tackett Curtis is another guy who they won a big recruiting battle for that I think is quite good as well. And so it's one of the brighter spots on the defense. Their defensive line has also just improved this year, but the linebackers were going into the year, it was assumed that was probably going to be the strongest unit on the defense, perhaps the middle linebackers. And they've, I think, mostly lived up to that, if not, the best unit on the defense, one of them, and one of the stronger units.
Yeah, I think he does special teams and outside linebacking, I want to say, something like that.
Yeah, you're right. Mike Tressel is the middle linebacker. Sorry.
Right. No. I'm not trying to step on it. I just.
No, you're fine. I'm sorry to bring up the name.
I want to make sure.
Sorry to bring up the name Tressel.
No, you're fine. You're fine. You're fine.
They've improved on the outside at the edge this year. Mason Reiger is a guy who is kind of a little bit of an athletic freak, who maybe is a little bit below expectations right now, but he's been in and out of the lineup with injury during his time at Louisville, and so this is kind of he had a last gasp at eligibility here that he was really looking forward to getting it. And so I think they've been fine. It's a unit overall that they were last in the country last year in tackles for loss, for example, right? So up front, they needed a lot of help. They were 5th to last in sacks. So off the edge last year, they were really rough. They really failed at generating pressure, and I think they've been a lot better this year. But I still think there's room to grow. I don't think anybody's pointing to Matt Mitchell and being like, "You stink, we're calling for his job." But
yeah. He's a good guy. He's a good coach. So
anytime I've talked to him, he's been very, very happy-go-lucky guy, easy to talk to. So I understand that. Kellen, anything else from you? Any work you want to plug? Tell the folks about where they can find you at Maizen Brew, etc.
Yeah, well, I appreciate it. I do a weekly picks pod with my editor, Vaughn Lozon. We do it on the Block M Podcast Network, the Pick'em Podcast, and we just go through the 8 biggest games of the week and just predict how we're doing. We're actually tied in our standings there. And, I cover football. I don't cover football like as the beat writer per se, but I'll throw in a football article probably once or twice a week. Covering the basketball fully once season amps up, going to all those games, getting my credential for that shortly here. But yeah, Media Day was yesterday. It's an exciting Michigan team. Definitely something you want to check out, Wisconsin fans, when Michigan and Wisconsin play. Yeah, just wrote a cool story about the fueling center and the diet plans that Michigan's been on in terms of like their production and whatnot. Their freshman point guard, Trey McKinney, is actually down 18 pounds since the summer started. So they are just using data and a lot of stuff to build the best athletes possible there. And yeah, amazongbrew.com. If you're interested in Michigan athletics at all, we got a great site. About a dozen of us work there, and we've been pumping out really good content for the last for a long time. I think we've hit a good stride here for the last year and a half per se. But yeah, it's been a fun ride. Amazing Brew is the best free place to view Michigan content on the internet. So.
It's where I go, and I'm right with you. I was telling you what I texted you back in April, and I was of the mind then, and I am maybe even more of the mind now. That Michigan team is going to be good.
Yeah,
Dusty's really got that thing rolling, man.
Dusty's awesome. Dusty's awesome.
He's doing a lot.
He's when they talk about like college basketball coaches lacking faces and lacking personalities, and the big personalities of the sport kind of going away. He really is someone where I think he could elevate himself into that conversation.
Yeah, I think so too. We'll leave it at that. We'll have to have you back when we talk when the Badgers head to Ann Arbor.
Thank you for having me. Having me. I'm excited I'm sure we'll share a few DMs during the game and whatnot. Maybe if you want to air your frustrations out to me or I to you, if the game goes wrong way, I'm happy to be that shoulder to cry on for you. So.
I appreciate that, Kellen. We'll talk to you soon.
Awesome. Thanks a lot, Kedrick.
That's Kellen Voss of Maize and Brew. We'll link everywhere you can find him on the internets in the show description. I told him I was only going to keep him 25 minutes because we're recording right as Game 3 of Detroit Tigers and Cleveland Guardians is starting in that wild card round. So I told him to keep him 25 minutes so that he could get back and watch that game because he is also a Tigers fanatic. And we went long because I always go along with Kellen because he's one of the greats, hoping to have him back soon. We'll be back ourselves here on Talking Badgers shortly, assuming this goes up Thursday, October 2nd, when I'm planning on having it go up. We'll be live later this evening for an After Dark show on a Thursday, 8:30 p.m. So stay tuned to the feed for that, youtube.com/@TalkingBadgers. I've been your host, Kedrick Summeris. I was going to say Kedrick.com/TalkingBadgers, but it's on social media at Kedrick Stummeris. You can follow the show on socials at Talking Badgers. And until we talk to you all again very soon on Wisconsin.